Just a couple of housekeeping rules, a couple of housekeeping things. Can anyone or can everyone hear me? If you can just let us know by clicking on the hands up option on your control panel there for the webinar to say that you can hear us, please. And the other thing is this webinar will be recorded and we'll put it on our YouTube channel in a week or so other people can watch it if you have got colleagues that aren't able to watch it today. Okay, so let's get started. Today's topic is on Twinfield reporting, and what we're going to cover, the bulk of the webinar, is about using the standard Twinfield reports, how to customize them, how to make them available to individual staff or individual companies or clients within your setup. And we're also going to have a quick look at Twinfield analysis, which is the Excel report writer at the end of this webinar. So, as I said, very little preparation today, so we're going to go straight into looking at a demonstration of modifying reports. So I'm back in Twinfield now, and I'm going to click on the reports icon up here. And the first report, the report that people use most commonly is the, under General Ledger reports, is the extended trial balance. And so that's the one I thought we would have a look at modifying today and show you what sort of things you can do with it. First thing to point out, perhaps, is when you've got bold reports, these ones here that are bold and underlined, they are the standard Twinfield reports. And while you can modify the standard Twinfield reports, you can't overwrite them. So whenever you modify an existing report, you will save it as a new name, and then they are the report names that are listed under the report that was based on in normal font. So we're going to start looking at the existing trial balance, and looking at the existing trial balance, you'll all be familiar with the selection criteria screen here, I'd imagine. And what I want to do today is, let's say I have a company that uses cost centers, and I want to create a simple profit and loss report that is only for one particular cost center, and I'm going to make that available to one particular person so as that person can log on and run his or her profit and loss for the cost center that that person manages without having to worry about what all the different fields mean on this particular screen. So let's start by, I've selected the report obviously, and I'm coming down to here. I'm going to run it for the whole of 2015. I'm only want to run the profit and loss as opposed to the balance sheet as well, and as you'll be aware, if you run the extended trial balance, you can run one or the other or both. So I selected profit and loss only, and I want to run by cost center. I'm going to hit next, and at the moment I then have a report that's got lots of columns going across the page, each general ledger code, and under that the cost centers that have got balances on. What I want to do is I want to modify this report so as the manager of cost center number 1 can run this report, and all they're going to see is the profit and loss codes by for that cost center only. So what I do up the top here is I go and click on the design button, and we just maximize that. So down here, first thing is I've got a whole lot of columns that I don't actually want. All I really want is to see the closing balance at the for the period that I'm running it for. So I'm going to click on the cross on each of these fields. Unfortunately, you have to scroll back down the screen after each one. Click on the cross beside each of that. That one didn't disappear, did that time. We'll get rid of the middle ones first. That one didn't disappear. And oh, and what I'm trying to do, for some reason it's not removing the fields, just one more to go. Clicking on the cross to get rid of the field, so all I've got left is the one field that I want. Now I'm also going to, I'm going to save that report now, and we'll just have a quick look and see what we've got. So as I said, if you modify an existing report, you have to give it a new name. So we are going to call this report report test, for want of a better name. I can put in a description as well. I can say this is a profit and loss report for cost center 00001. And I'm going to save that. At the moment, I haven't put any selection criteria in to say it's only for cost center 001. But let's save the report, see what we've got. We now have a report that has only got the one column, but it's still got all the cost centers in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Design View and go to this other tab here, the Criteria tab, and this is where I can modify the actual selection criteria screen that the user sees when they go to run the report. So firstly, I want to modify this report perhaps to say that when they run the report, they don't need to select profit and loss because that's the only option they're going to have. And to do that, over here you can see that there's different column options here. The one called locked, I'm going to click on, and that means that they won't be able to select on that. It's going to be hard-coded to select that profit and loss only. Likewise, because I want to run it only for cost center number 1, I'm going to click on here to say that I've locked the cost center, and then I'm just going to double click and go and select cost center number 1. Let's leave everything else as and down here they have to select cost centers here for the cost center to come up to be able to be selected. So I really want to lock that so they can't unclick that. So let's just lock that as well and then hit save. So now if I go to the criteria screen, I can see I can't click on balance sheet profit and loss, that's hard-coded, it's locked. I can't select a cost center, that's locked as well, it's grayed out, and I can't untick the cost center option here. But I have a few other confusing fields perhaps that I might not want the user to see. I don't want to see project/asset, I don't want to see activity, either I don't use them or I don't want them in this particular report. And then when I run the report, okay, when I run the report at the moment, I see the general ledger code, and then I see the cost center, and I don't need to see the cost center because I'm only running this for cost center number 1. So I'm going to go back into design view again. I'm just going to maximize it. So the first thing is, a moment ago I got rid of the fields I didn't want in this middle section of the report, and above here all the groupings within the report. So I don't want to group on activity, so I can get rid of that. And I don't want to group on project, so I can get rid of that. And I don't need to group on cost center because I've only got one cost center in the report, so I can get rid of that. And also, what was the other thing I was going to change? I've forgotten. Let's just go with that for the moment. Hit save. You can now see I have a report by it's a profit and loss report by general ledger code, only showing one line per general ledger code. In the selection criteria at the top, it says it was for cost center number 1. So hopefully that covers everything I wanted to cover in that area there. I'm just quickly looking at my brief notes that I made. Okay, so now let's say that as well as wanting to report on cost center number 1, and it says here that the base currency is sterling, I happen to have a reporting currency perhaps of US dollars. To be honest, I don't know what the reporting currency is in this particular company, but I have a reporting currency as well. So I want to report my profit and loss on both sterling and on US dollars perhaps. So I'm going to go back into my design view, and I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here. All the fields that are not already on the report, including those ones that I pulled out of this middle section, are now down the bottom of the report. And I have a field at the moment called general ledger balances and base currency. I also want to have, if I can find it here, general ledger balances and reporting currency. And if I just drag that up and dump it into this middle section, you will see now that I have 2 columns, reporting currency, base currency. Maybe I want them the other way around, so I'll just move that over there, which way it goes. It doesn't want to move. I'll click on this arrow here instead, and I think, yeah, that switched them around. I will go down to the bottom, save my report, and now I have UK pounds in this column, US dollars in this column, and a simple profit and loss. Another thing worth pointing out though is at the bottom here I have a not linked to summary level account 004, and in a moment we're going to go and have a look at the reporting structure, which is what this report is based on. So when we can modify any report, that's easy enough, but we can also set up what's called a reporting structure that says these accounts here appear under the subtotal of turnover, these accounts here appear under the subtotal cost of sales, etc., etc., and you have as many subtotals as you want. So when I go and create a new GL code, as well as creating the code and putting transactions against it, I also need to modify my reporting structure to add it into where I want that report or that field to appear. So let's go and do that. Now, as you may or may not know, if you're familiar with using the new look and feel within Twinfield, I can click on the plus icon up here, and that will open up a new tab, keep me logged into Twinfield, but open up a new tab. And so I don't need to close my report. I can come in here and I can go and modify that reporting structure, and then I can come back and just refresh my report. Reporting structure is under the reports icon as well, and you have reporting structures up here. Now, I've got all sorts of reporting structures in my test company. If I go back to my report, at the top here, it will tell me my reporting structure happens to be a reporting structure with my name on it. So I'm going to go and modify that reporting structure. And if I type in here, that's the reporting structure we want to modify. So these are all my different subtotals for both the profit and loss and the balance sheet. And the field that was on my report the code that wasn't listed was code 004. If I go over to General Ledger Accounts, I can see a list of all the account codes that haven't been added into the reporting structure, and there's a total of 34 of them. But the only one I'm interested in is this account here, and I need to decide where I want that. If I click on it's a revenue account, so I want it in the gross profit section, and if I click on that, I can then drill down. I can see I've got a turnover section. I've got a whole lot of revenue codes in there. So why don't I just go and drag that and dump it into there, and that now adds that into my reporting structure. I'll click Save down here, and I'm prompted initially to say, do I want to update that for all companies that use this reporting structure? Now, excuse me, this can be a little bit confusing to a lot of people. The first thing to say is that code that I've added, 004, potentially all the companies that use the same reporting structure are related companies, and I want to add that new code into the other companies if it doesn't already exist. So if I want to do that, I want to have this option at the bottom here, create and link non-existing accounts. And so account 004 will be created in each of these 4 companies. Or I might not want to add it, but I want to add it into the reporting structure if that code already exists in the other companies. So I'm going to have the second option ticked. Or I might not want to save it at all into the other companies, in which case I can just untick the other companies. This is the company I'm in at the moment, and then hit save. Now, if I go back to here and hit refresh on my report, 004 appears in the place that I just put it to in my reporting structure. And just to go back to what we changed earlier with the design view on the selection criteria, if I go back to my selection criteria here, you'll see, or I was expecting you to see that we haven't got those there. Let's just go and see what I missed. We go into design view, go into here. Oh, I was going to and I forgot. The project and the activity I don't want to see in the selection criteria because we're not using them. So the column here is called hidden. I'm just going to tick on hidden in there for both of those and hit save. Now if I go to my selection criteria, you can see you don't have the ability to select on project and activity. So that's fairly straightforward, hopefully, and in a moment I'll ask for any questions. I just want to show you an example of some of the other things that you might want to change with reports. So as well as changing something like a general ledger page report, if we go back to reports, and let's say we're looking at our suppliers open items. So under suppliers, we have a report called Open Items, and you can see there's already some modified versions. Go into here and I run my report, and what it tells me is I've got 3 suppliers with outstanding balances, and all I can see is the value of those invoices in my base currency, which happens to be pounds. But I happen to know that some of these suppliers are overseas suppliers, and they invoice me in different currencies. So I want to see perhaps the value of this invoice in US dollars or euros or whatever currency it might have been invoiced in on my report. So like I did earlier with the other report, I'm going to go into Design View and just maximize that for a moment. And I'm going to scroll down, and because it's a different report, I've got different fields available at the bottom, fairly obvious, I guess. What I want to select is I want the currency of the invoice, and I'm going to drag that up, and I'm going to put it in beside the amount. But that amount there is still in base currency, so I actually want the invoice amount as well, and I'm going to put that in here. And potentially I may want the exchange rate. Now, where do I have exchange rate? Maybe I don't have exchange rate. I have exchange rate if I want to show reporting currency. Down here. So as well as the invoice amount, I have additional fields. So I can click on the plus here and scroll back down. Didn't take it. Click on the plus here. So under invoice amount, I've now got 2 values. I'm going to have the amount of the invoice in whatever currency it is, and I'm going to have the exchange rate. Then in this field, I've added in that I want to have the currency, and then I'm going to have the value in British pounds. So, and also, that's the amount of the original invoice. I have another field here, open amount in base currency. So potentially I might actually want the amount that's outstanding on that invoice in the base currency as well, in the transaction currency, but I won't add that for the moment. Hit save. It's prompting me down the bottom when I hit save, it's prompting me that I need to have a name because I've modified the existing report. So we're going to call this open items with supply transaction currency or something similar. Save that report. You can see here now that I have my list of invoices, invoice numbers over here. The amount in the currency, and this particular supplier sent me 1 invoice in US dollars, a few in euros, and 1 in British pounds. The exchange rate that was in place when that transaction was entered, and then the actual amount in British pounds. So while I know that I owe the supplier 513 pounds, I can see the breakdown of that in the currency of those invoices. What I might want to do now is I might want to say, well, actually, I want a subtotal by currency as well. So when I see the supplier, I actually want to know how much I owe the supplier in euros, how much I owe the supplier in US dollars, etc., without having to add up individual invoices. So I'm going to go back to Design View again. And where I've got my currency here, I'm going to click on the little blue box, and I'm going to say I want to group that, and I want to add it to a new group. And that will add it to a new group at the bottom here. I am going to then just tick this option here that I want to subtotal that, and I'm going to save my report. And we can now see that the supplier called British Telecom, under the, it would be helpful if I added the actual name of the currency into that. So let me just go back to the Design View. Where I've got my total by currency, I need to tell it what I want. Do I want it, the name of the currency is the one I'll go with, but it could be the currency code or the short name. Hit save. So for euros, I owe that supplier 446 euros, which works out at 335 British pounds. I owe the supplier in pounds, that 1 invoice there, which has obviously got a 1-to-1 exchange rate, and in US dollars, I owe that amount. Now, that's fine. That might be what I want. Or what I might prefer is I might want to group my report by currency and then by supplier. So if I go to design view, I could come down to here and I can grab that currency grouping, and I can just click on the upward arrow here and that will move it up one. So now I'm subtotaling by company if I'm doing multi-company reporting, by currency and then by supplier. And if I save that report, I now have a report that says this is everything we owe in euros with a subtotal. This is everything we owe in pounds, each of the suppliers with a subtotal, and everything we owe in US dollars with a subtotal. Obviously, at the bottom of the report, because this column is in multiple currencies, you're not going to have a total, but in here you're going to have a total that the total amount owing to suppliers is 1,200 odd pounds, which in theory would balance to your agree to your balance sheet. Having modified those two reports, if I was in a multi-user situation, at the moment I'm the only one that can see those reports because I'm the person that modified them. So the second step you need to be aware of is that having modified a report, if I go back to reports, I need to go into report management and say who can access that report, the one I've just modified. So if I click on report management, and if I go down, you'll see all the reports under the different headings of what they were based on. So if I go down to that report we've just modified called supplier open items, and the report that I just modified happens to be open items with transaction currency, modified by myself, and I'm going to click on the access rights, which is the person icon over the right hand side, and at the moment it says Richard McChesney has access to this report, everyone else doesn't have access. So I'm going to click on one of these two icons to the left here. That one there inserted a row above me, which I can move down if I want to. And I'm going to say that anyone that has access to this company here has access to this report. So it works on a hierarchical basis from top down. So Richard McChesney has access to this report regardless of what company he's in. Anyone else has access to this report, but only if they're in that company. And I could add another one here and say that, add another one, move it down to one below me, and I could select and say that this user perhaps, we'll select Ted, if he is listed here, Ted. He has access to this particular report regardless of what company he's in, but I might want to actually say that he only has access to that report if he's not in this company here. So this would say Richard has access regardless, Ted has access regardless until it gets to here, and no one in this company has access. Or it might be that just for whatever reason, I'm just making up ideas at the moment, that Ted doesn't have access if he's in this company. Based on the way I've done this rule though, it gets this far and it says Ted's got access. I don't need to go any further because I know Ted's got access. So if I don't want him to have access in this company for some reason, I need to make sure that it gets to that rule first before it gets to the rule saying he does have access. Hopefully that makes sense. I save that when I'm finished. And now if Ted was to log in or anyone else was to log in, depending on what company they're logged into, they will or won't see the report based on the permissions. Now, one other thing you could do is you could say, well, I want everyone to have permission to the report regardless of what company they're in, what user they are, what level user they are. So rather than having to create a whole lot of rules, I can just get rid of every single rule, save that, and now everyone has access to that report regardless of who they are or what they are. So that's my very quick 15-minute demo of report modifications. In a moment we're going to ask if anyone's got any questions, but I want to just cover one other area, which is the Twinfield analysis report writer. Some of you may be aware of it, and it's not something I go into in any detail here today because it's not something that can be covered in 5 or 10 minutes. but we have a report writer that is basically an Excel plugin. So you can install it on your computer. It's not cloud-based. It runs within Excel on your computer, and it will pull down data from the Twinfield cloud and enable you to use your own Excel skills or employ us if necessary to create reports in your required format. So looking at this one, a traditional profit and loss, current month, year to date, same time last year, full year last year type report. Or this one here, a pivot chart, just using this Excel functionality with pivot tables, but showing graphical presentation of that data. A simple graph here of outstanding balances by customer, or maybe a more complex report, which is some sort of board type report, which shows profit and loss by location with some graphical pie charts as well that can be presented at a board level. At the end of the day, with Twinfield analysis, you can do pretty much whatever you want. It does require advanced level knowledge of Excel, but if that's something that you like and you've got clients that might be interested in that sort of thing, if you don't have the skills to do that work yourself, we can definitely help you. Either we do have one-on-one or small group training courses on Twinfield analysis, or we can provide quotes to develop reports to meet specific needs. So before we go on to question and answer, just to point out, if you do have any support questions, whether it's related to what you've seen today or anything else to do with Twinfield, by all means ring our support desk. Phone number's there on the screen. And now I'll ask if anyone's got any questions, please. Just looking on screen, we've got a few questions already. Just give me a moment to read and decipher the question. Okay, first question is briefly, is it possible to show each month of a report